your higher-ups, when you say, well, you know, the students teach us a lot. We learn a lot from the students. They kind of look at you, well, you're the expert. You're the one imparting knowledge. You're the one that they seek knowledge from. And of course you want to say, but they already know stuff, you know, and they know stuff that we don't know. And you need to find that out in order to find, it's kind of, again, this triangulation. You've got your teacher, learner, and the work. Is like once you're in trialogue rather than the binary of teacher student, once you're in that trialogue with the work, when it's like, oh, now we can be open, now this opens up a whole world of possibilities.
Hi, we are both dance classes. I am Beatrice Ghezzi.
And I'm Orly Quick.
This collection of interviews is part of our Teachers Rehab 22 project, funded by the Arts Council of England.
We've interviewed a selection of dance practitioners who've made an impactful contribution to education and learning over a period of time. They come from different dance disciplines and they work in different contexts, and we hope you find their words as inspiring as we have.
Rosie and Beverly from Irie Dance Theatre.
Temujin and Sunanda from Grounded Movement.
Hakim from Impact Dance.
And Erica from the University of Roehampton.
Hello, I'm Erica Stanton. I am a dancer, teacher, choreographer and enthusiast about all people encountering dance in a way that is playful, seriously playful, enjoyable, sweaty, doesn't need to prove a point. Just come as you are, be who you are, enjoy your dancing, that's it. So that's the John Cage thing. That's kind of, I give that to the students every start of every term. I put it everywhere. Uncle Fester, Beatrice, Orly, what's it?
It's a pleasure.
He has no lower jaw.
So many connections.
Yeah, no, it's nice. And also so many of them still doing stuff. Of the others, like nobody's going to offer anything. And so there are actual, Danny is the only person, he got into a lot of trouble actually, Danny is the only person who kind of, well, I'm going to write all this down. So there are actual exercises.
I was really obsessed with Jose Limón and Matt Mattox when I was first starting my thing. And I remember going to the British Library and getting everything they had.
Wow.
And I think this was one of the books I pulled out.
So beautiful. Movie star good looks, what's not to like? And also
honest sweat.
But you know, but people
were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you know, dancers that would tour with him, you know, that he would have an appetite for food, an appetite for moving, an appetite for good food and wine, for talking to people. So this kind of idea that the impoverished life of a dancer, where you have to deny yourself all of these kind of gifts for your body, you know, the dancing, but also fueling.
Yeah.
It's like a total, you know, non-story for him. It's like, let's eat, you know, let's go talk. Yeah, let's have a nice time. I got into dance by mistake, through failure. I was destined, shall I say? Well, my parents' desire was for me to be a doctor, and unfortunately I didn't do very well in my physics A level, so I wasn't able to take up my place at medical school. And so I did my second choice, which was a human movement studies degree. Now that dates me because the concept of human movement studies was only around really in the 80s. It's basically physical education. So because I'd been really interested in sport, gymnastics, not so much dance as a child, this seemed like a natural kind of, like don't resit your physics A level because you know you're not very good at it, so let's do this. And I thought I was going to kind of pursue a sporting or a short-term sporting career. I played lacrosse. I was okay at it. I played lacrosse for Wales, but you know, most sport, I don't know if I could say this, like, sorry Welsh people, but you know, if you come from Wales, kind of the bar is a little bit lower because there are fewer people who live there, I guess. But then I discovered that the training, you know, I just got tired of the getting up early and the kind of driving yourself through circuit training to the point of puking, just to be a little bit too much. So having encountered my first real sort of dance classes then at college, I thought, oh, this is nice. Because it felt nice. There was no target. It was like, try this, problem solve this, or what does it feel like if you do that? So I thought, oh, I like this, and I seem to be quite good at it. And so then I thought, well, perhaps there's a technique to this. So and there was. So I started with Graham and Cunningham classes, and a little bit of ballet. But obviously coming at this, you know, as an 18-year-old, not really having done dance technique before, which is a bit of a lie. All right, so let me roll back. Both my parents were physical educators, and my mother taught modern educational dance. So if it was half term and I had to, you know, go to school because there was no childcare, I would be doing those basic effort actions with the, you know, senior school young people going, oh, this is what my mum does. This is weird, but it's also quite like this. So there's obviously something in there with that movement practice, or, you know, it's terribly fidgety, or just a kind of wanting to know about your embodied self. You know, I knew how, you kind of know yourself as a thinker, but then once you start moving and being in motion, so this is really not about kind of feeling that you're articulating something as body design, or kind of the kind of shape, if you like, acquiring certain kind of shapes in space, but being in motion, moving, I realized was a fabulous feeling. No, in Graham class, I didn't really encounter that so much because, you know, it's just like so percussive. It's like go here, go there. This kind of sense of opposition is in order to arrive somewhere. So that didn't feel quite right. And then Cunningham, God, it's impossible in your head because, you know, you'd have 92, 2, 3, 4, and it's like, I don't remember what 1, 2, 3, 4 is. So whilst you kind of go, well, yeah, this is, you know, nice problem solving, but I am just blagging it. You know, this does not feel at all authentic, shall I know what to say. And then when I went to the States to do my MFA at Sarah Lawrence, I had, an epiphany, I guess. And my Limón teacher, Martha Partridge, was just a complete legend. I mean, she was incredibly musical, so everything had kind of shape in time. So she was really clear about phrasing. And then the movement, it was just falling, just like falling as a desirable thing to do, but falling with softness and yielding, and feeling your relationship with the floor as one of partnership, playing with your ordeal with gravity, the everyday ordeal with gravity. It just made so much sense physically. And I think she said in her feedback to me one time, I know you get a written report at the end of every year, she said that what did she say? Fall and recovery is as natural to Erica as walking is to the rest of us. And I just thought, oh my God, that's such a nice thing to say, you know. And I thought, well, maybe I do have an affinity for this. So then I sort of became her TA, and then I was going to kind of all the Limón classes in the city, and I just felt like I'd found home. And that's 40 years ago. Nearly. And I still love it, even though now it's really an historically informed practice. So I think my approach is very different because you have to kind of see it in the expanded field that we work in now. Because it feels very kind on your body. And it feels very important when you're doing it, because you're not only encountering your emotional self, you know, how you're moving through space, but you're also engaging with the philosophy of, I am doing this with you, we are doing this now, and we're all encountering the same problem, which is we work with time and we work with gravity. They are both things you can't do anything about. So there's a humility in that, realizing that there will always be things that are stronger, more important, more powerful than you are. But in you recognizing that, dealing with that, then you kind of have a freedom in what you're moving. But I think the bottom line is, I feel that this is a really lovely thing to do, and what I find even more lovely is when you're working with a group of people who are perhaps encountering it again or coming to it for the first time, is you just see a kind of shedding of layers, and you see the joy start to kind of come into the body, and yeah, it's that feeling, that embodied knowing of being in a safe place, in a place of subjective agency. You know, there's a lot of talk now about non-interventional pedagogy, you know, it's kind of just offering the movement, being very hands-off as a teacher, and it, you know, it can be fun to have that kind of like dance like nobody's watching. But actually, you know, I'm a trained teacher. I've been trained to do this, to kind of look at what people do and to facilitate looking at the potential of what somebody might have that they don't already know. You know, it's like, have you tried this? Or what about if this? So this idea of the teacher as an outside observer, I don't know if that feels to me as a little bit old-fashioned now. It's kind of, you know, especially when you're a professional dancer, it's like, leave us alone, we know what we're doing. So, you know, I'm just coming to class because I just need the exercise today, or I just need to kind of be in touch with my body today, and it's tricky. So I think, how is it relevant? Well, I mean, a lot of people would say that it isn't. I know that a long time ago, Carla Maxwell came over and was keen for the Limón company to be in town and to possibly perform at Sadler's Wells and to do a sort of southeast tour. And her question from producers was, you know, well, why do audiences want to see this? And I think she was really thrown, because in New York you probably don't get those questions. So it could be just a UK thing or a London thing. So, you know, you're constantly being asked what's contemporary, what's new, how is this kind of fresh? But, you know, we don't need to throw the old stuff out, because it's still got something to say. And also when it feels like it's doing you good, like well-being and, you know, dealing with our trauma post-pandemic is kind of key now too, I think. Maybe yes. Maybe there is something in that when you're not mainstream, if you've been othered in some kind of way, then there's a strategy in your work to express what it is to be human. So it's kind of, rather than identifying difference or highlighting difference, or positionality as we call it now, is that you are trying to bring together. So if we are, like, what you look like, what your sexuality is, what your gender preference is immaterial in this moment of dancing, where you can access it from any position. And then once you are dancing with a group of people, we are doing this. Like, we is the only thing that makes sense to me. This kind of the position of I and our obsession with individuality and individualism is like, where can it go? you know, there is no me. I teach netball, I coach netball, and you know, there's that kind of thing that everywhere. There is no I in team. So similarly, is unless we are doing this, unless there is collegiality, unless there is empathy, unless we have an understanding of how this works as a community of practice, then yeah, we're fucked. I mean, we are obsessed with virtuosity, and I think that isn't new. But I think the tricks have got more extreme. I think training now allows young bodies to just do extraordinary things. And you see it, you know, I watch the Commonwealth Games and you see what young women are doing in gymnastics or in modern rhythmic gymnastics, and you just think, you know, 40 years ago, there's no way that the training would prepare you for this kind of, you know, whether it's number of rotations or height of elevation or just kind of extreme shaping of the body. But when the premise of performing the technique is, it's unselfish. So you tell your audience how this feels rather than showing your audience what you are doing. So this is a kind of, I think it's a principle, again, it's a modern dance principle from the Nicolai training. So this idea of metakinesis, which I think we call embodied empathy now, or kinesthetic empathy. So your mission is to show how your movement feels so that the audience feels this vicariously. And a lot of people say, philosophers say, can't be done. That's not a thing. You know, you watch things and that's how your brain facilitates its response. And I think, well, I felt it, so, you know, maybe the seeing is where it happens, but it definitely then comes into the body. So I think Lalita Raja is one of my colleagues here, a contact specialist and legend. We went to see 3 choreographers' works at Sadler's Wells, where they were all dancing to the same piece of work, so Beethoven's Grosse Fuge. So it was Lucinda Childs, Anna Teresa de Kiesmacher, and Maggie Marat. So Lucinda is a fellow Sarah Lawrence girl, so I kind of know her work for a long time. So Lucinda is like, yeah, okay, Lucinda, I get it. Anna Teresa, I'm a fan. And so, you know, again, you're watching these dancers producing these kind of long, really kind of rolling phrases of movement, and I'm going, oh, you know, you get those little kind of impulses in your body as though you're dancing with. And then Maggie Marat was just like, did the whole dance. I was exhausted by the end of it, but it was just the kind of, her understanding of phrasing and her understanding of kind of propelling these very different body types through the space was a very generous piece of work. And I said to Lalita Raja at the end, I said, oh my God, I'm knackered, are you? And he said, yeah, he said, I did the whole thing. And I think part of it is those choreographers are kind of our age, so there's a kind of understanding of maybe of the heritage of their training, or the legacy that they're pulling through their work. So there's familiarity in in what you're absorbing from the stage. So yeah, so it's this kind of giving your audience the opportunity to move with you rather than look at you. And again, there's kind of that language thing of including then. People out there, you lovely people that maybe I taught in the late 80s, I'm so sorry. Yeah, you know, I suppose I was quite young when I kind of got dragged into teaching. Or did I get dragged into teaching? I don't know. I applied for a job at Laban, and Marion Gough, the redoubtable Marion Gough, said, you could teach these 2, Friday afternoon, the slot that nobody wants. You can teach these 2 classes for the rest of the term. You'll be okay. And of course, you know, I'm sure that I was, you know, let's do this, and let's make this big phrase, and, you know, probably quite shouty, you know, lots of praise and encouragement, but loud, very kind of present in the room. Oh my God. And then, then because music was so key, as you know from doing my class, you know, the meters are all over the place and it's really an 8. So the musicians that I had to work with in that first period of time at Laban were fabulous. And so then it became more about a collaboration with the musician and then being able to say to the students, just listen to what's being offered here and like do what you hear. So then I think I shut up quite quickly, so there was less of the kind of, I'm the most enthusiastic person in the room and I'm very annoying, you know. I had to get over that. And as you do more and more, then you kind of get self-reflective about how you might not engage the people in participants. So, you know, like a lot of people in the room like, shut up, Erica, you know. I think the psychology is 1 in 5 people won't like you. So you kind of got to assume that, okay, we've got to consider that. So you've got to get over that. And also get over the idea that, oh, this is going to be the best class that these dancers have ever done. And just kind of, just be a little bit lighter with yourself, but also offer the classes, right, well, let's see what happens today, rather than planning up the wazoo and kind of sticking to your plan. I think I let that go very quickly because that doesn't work at all. So I suppose in my 30s there's a lovely moment of kind of how you think about it and how it all works. It was great because, you know, the phrasing came, the movement came easily, the words to go with the movement. So there's kind of golden, very small golden, where the body kind of could measure up to it, and the language was kind of a bit more sophisticated, and the approach was a little bit less in your face. And of course, then from that moment on, it's just like slow down the body, like how much can you do, how much can you demonstrate. So the kind of use of language has become, well, just a survival mechanism really, in order that you don't have to do quite so much. Easier said than done. I'm still thinking in my head I'm 28 and I can still do this stuff, but oh my God, the next day, yeah. So it's really hard to kind of be self-reflective of how your teaching has changed. I mean, I'm still doing some material that I perhaps was doing, you know, a long time ago. It still comes back, you know, you kind of reinvent things, or you kind of go to somebody's class. Like when Alan Danielson was alive, I used to do his class a bit, and he did a residency here for summer school, and he brought Geraldine Cardiel with him, who also does awareness through movement, Feldenkrais. So we did a bit of that kind of merging of, you know, how this informs what you're doing. So this kind of, I think, Beatrice, you talked about the detail, so it's kind of aware of then how the detail could be more interoceptive rather than a kind of checking the design kind of works or the order of events works. So there's perhaps a bit more information from other things that I found useful from somatic work or from other teachers, you know, because we're all chameleons, you know, this idea that this is my class. I'm thinking it's our class that I do because of, you know, a whole pile of ghosts behind me, dead people behind me, people next to me who are still alive, and people who are doing the class, the people who I've taught who want to teach Limón. That's always a delight when they say, yeah, I'm going to go and do a bit more of this and I'm going to teach it. Okay. Yes, you know, it's got a forward trajectory, a future trajectory. So it's changed a lot, but it hasn't changed also. It's, you know, this is, right, this has changed. That's fun. When I am teaching at Roehampton, I encounter, we have a lot of students who come from China, and they are a complete and utter joy, but the quality and rigor of their training is astonishing. trained body. So this now, how does Limón encounter the exquisitely trained body in a way where the person who is in that body is very, very proud, rightly so, of the work and the effort and the sweat and the often pain that has allowed them to become this extraordinary, the facility is extraordinary, but also the performing, there's just the small things about the focus and the expression on your face and where you look whilst you're moving. All of this is just seemingly part of the training. So then to ask those students to let things go is really hard, it's really challenging. And you have a lot of resistance and a lot of conversations about why it's necessary, why move in this way when I can already do this. So, we do get very attached to the practice makes permanent embodiment that we have. So I think using it as a tool to say, well, there's still a rigor here. It might not look like it when you're watching me show this phrase. You're thinking, what's in that? There's no big extension. There's not a kind of multiple turn in there, and I don't spend very much time in the air. Or if I do, I'm immediately falling. So that's been quite challenging in order to really cajole those students into finding the feeling, I suppose. You want to say, but it's not about what it looks like. It's like what you're trying to find here is something interoceptive, which you're then going to kind of share with someone who might be watching you. Recognition. What an interesting concept. I'm not the best. I saw this question on your list and I thought, I'm not the person to answer this question. The desire for recognition, what's that about? It's the work. If we triangulate with the work, if the work persists, you've done your job. So this idea of me being recognized for that the work is persisting or insisting its way into the 21st century, that's great, but it's when you're one of many, there are so many people, so many great teachers doing kind of something they believe in, they're kind of passionate about, and you go to their classes and you believe it too. You kind of go, yeah, I see why you're doing this, great. So this idea of desiring recognition or what I might be recognized for, I don't really think about it because every day is about the work. It's like, I know it sounds mad, but there's not a day I don't get out of bed and think, I'm a movement practitioner, I'm a dancer, as I walk, as I move, even as I move around the kitchen, there's kind of everything has an embodied awareness, and then you're thinking, okay, so I'm teaching this today. This is the plan that happens there. All of the logistics kind of swirling around your head. Busy, busy, busy head, busy body. So this idea is like, well, like what good are you, or has this kind of got any kind of recognition? It's just bullshit, really. And I think the thing that we forget when you're kind of immersed in a teaching practice is that you don't have an off switch. It's really hard, particularly when you're in an institution and you're going to see a group of students all the time, they're constantly in your head. So-and-so did a fabulous class yesterday, so-and-so wasn't there. Oh, I think we've got to kind of, there's an injury, or the class didn't go well yesterday. Why? All of that kind of shifting it. And there's a fab New York artist called Miguel Gutierrez, and he has this fabulous manifesto, Reasons Why I Teach Class, and they are, I look at them, I should have them on my board, but I don't, and they are fabulous, because he talks about, because I'm already thinking about you, the class he's going to teach, the class has begun, and I just go, bingo, there it is, that the class doesn't begin, you know, where you just go, however you want to kind of do the introduction. It begins way before that, and it goes on after that, so that you're constantly immersed in this kind of swirl of plan, deliver, reflect, you know, kind of red herrings, problem solving, and it just is fascinating because it just kind of takes up your head. So I don't really think about, like, what, you know, the perception of it from the outside. Maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe I should be more attentive to marketing it, you know? Well, you know, that could be a thing. And, you know, I think that could be a thing because I think there are exceptions. You know, there will be Limón teachers you kind of going, you know, you don't need to do that. Don't behave like that. But in the main, the teachers that I had and the teachers I observe teaching it now, they are teachers you want to spend time with. And there is a humility inbuilt in there. And there is a desire for the participants in the class to get something from the experience rather than, you know, well, the kind of studio mentality, come to class and make it a populist class so you all pay more money and so I go away with kind of, you know, I can eat for that day. I mean, I get that too. But that's never really been my experience of the Limón technique. And, you know, it was around at a difficult time. You know, you had the modern dance pioneers and then Jose, it was a bit of an awkward fit. You know, pretending to be something as he wasn't. And of course now everyone looks back on his work and kind of questions something about his anti-racist stance, you know, because of him being a brown person and kind of trying to express his Mexican heritage, but also just being very quiet about being gay. So this kind of brown queer identity, people are only really talking about this now. And so then, of course, you know, it's all very well for us in the 2022 to look back at the kind of modern dance era and kind of put that kind of lens of, you know, what we talk about now in terms of, you know, equality, diversity and inclusion, and kind of have questions about how that wasn't addressed in what we saw as a kind of pioneering era of dance. But I think he obviously was trying to play the game but also hide kind of certain aspects of his personhood. And yet in his teaching was for his kind of the first group of teachers who kind of said, well, we're going to go out and go to France and teach Limón, what should we do? You know, what's the class go like? And he just said, you do it your way. You know, there was the kind of codification that perhaps, well, Graham in particular was kind of, you know, it has to be, you have to have done the training and he has to go, class goes like this. He was very open to people kind of encountering or sharing it in a way that made sense to them. You know, there is the reality of like survival through this, because how many people tell you, you did a great job today? Or the support, the kind of scaffolding around teaching practice. And it is all about the practice. It's not strategy, it's like when you're actually operational as a teaching practitioner, then finding those places where somebody cares for you or says, great job today. Yeah. You know, and it's usually horizontal. You find those, you know, you find your peers kind of, you know, and it'd just be a small little kind of breadcrumb of like, oh great, you're still there and that's still happening, you know. So it's, and I think we should address that actually. It's like, how do we celebrate the teachers who have just kept going? What is my hope for the future? How big can I go here? Yeah, like, oh, yeah. Oh. No.
It doesn't have to be about the world.
No, I know. Oh, yeah. Well, all right, so the immediate future, I would really like to see more dancers taking their pleasure in movement. I do not want to go to another dance show where I have to watch text, if I listen to text, or look at people fighting or ranting. It would be lovely to think that movement needs no other excuses. You know, that in order to be entertaining to an audience, then, you know, I need to explain my dance, I need to talk about my dance. And also in conferences now, we've had performative lectures up the wazoo. It's like, enough already. You know, the kind of explaining dance, making the cognition of dance something which it isn't. You know, kind of saying, oh, but you know, there's higher level thinking going on in dance. Well, of course there is, but you don't have to talk about it. It's like people know in their bodies that they've got this. And so, yeah, the pleasure of dancing, the doing of dancing for its own sake, we don't need to explain it to people who don't dance all the time. That funders don't ask you what the dance is going to be like before you make it. That, you know, they don't ask you who your audience is before you've made the dance. What absolute bullshit, you know? So trusting the movement, trusting your artist to make good work and allowing them to make bad work. You know, we have to make failures. It's the only way that your creativity kind of finds another way. So we've got very marketized, you know, it's like all about the look. And then social media makes us even worse. You know, those little kind of captions that people do, the influencers. So, you know, keeping it real, keeping it sweaty, going in the studio, good, honest dancing. Like, what's not to like? I hope we've still got that in 10, 20, 30 years' time, because there are a lot of people who are working really hard for that not to happen.
Yeah, but this is naughty, this book.
Well, at the time, there was a little bit. I mean, I dip into it because there's some nice pictures.
I want to see you dancing about it, Erica.
You'll be waiting a long time.